There's a certain concept that's been on my mind lately, and I wanted to talk about it in a video, despite not really knowing what I'm trying to achieve with this one. While it's similar to the I've got something to say life update videos I've done at least 3 times before, this one is not intended to be as heavy, dark, or depressing as those updates. Originally, this discussion was going to be done as a Thomas the Tank Engine story in Trains 2019, until I realised that it just wouldn't work in that format. So instead, I'll be talking over footage of trains on the West Coast Main Line London to Milton Keynes route in Trains in World 5, with occasional cutaways to random real-life footage. Although I'm not sure why I decided to use TSW5 footage again, I do know that, out of all the routes I could have chosen, I went with West Coast Main Line London to Milton Keynes because I wanted to revisit a line that I've ridden on in real life. I've been thinking about the concept of parasocial relationships recently. In case you don't know what that means, a parasocial relationship is when you invest time, emotional energy, and interest in another person, usually a media figure like a singer or a YouTuber, while said media figure is unaware of your existence. From what I've seen, the term parasocial relationship is frequently used in relation to the connection between celebrities and their fans. For the longest time, I haven't really been interested in famous people and what they've been up to, and for the most part, that's still the case. Even then, over the last 3 years or so, there have been 3 people in particular who still caught my eye for one reason or another, namely Brett Cooper, Sydney Watson, and Toni Basil. An unusual combination, I know. In the case of Brett and Sydney, it's because I found myself agreeing with a lot, but certainly not all, of what they had to say in their commentary videos, and Brett was a big influence on my TSW reviews. Meanwhile, in the case of Toni Basil, it's because I was curious to look further into her career after discovering her song Mickey, which was her only top 40 hit. Then, I came across their self-titled second album, which includes the criminally underrated song Over My Head and the 7-minute epic Suspense, and the rest is history. Of course, if, for whatever reason, you don't like any of the 3 people I've mentioned, that's okay as long as you can respect my opinion, to which I am entitled just as much as you are to your opinion. Honestly, even I think the situation I've gotten myself into is a bit silly, given what I said earlier about having little interest in what YouTubers or conventional celebrities are up to outside of their channels, music, or films. Indeed, if there's someone whose channel I subscribe to, I generally don't follow them on any other sites, nor do I buy any of their merchandise if they sell any. Although I have little hope that she'll actually be watching, I wish Sydney Watson good luck with her tea company, and I would buy some tea myself, but that sort of drink doesn't really float my boat, as it were. When it comes to not following celebrities on social media, there has still been one exception in recent times, but why that's the case is beyond me. In any case, I've never considered myself to be a simp, especially since I've never thrown copious amounts of money at Brett, Sydney, and Toni, or any other popular person I follow online, for that matter. The nearest I got to stereotypical simpery was when I left a $10 donation on one of Brett's live streams during her days on the comments section, and she actually read the super chat message on stream. Incidentally, that was long before I rebranded as DC4260 Productions, and it's probably the closest I'll ever get to talking directly to a massively popular YouTuber. I should also clarify that my interests in Brett, Sydney, and Toni are not romantic ones. As for why I made all those videos about Toni Basil and 5 of her songs, namely Over My Head, Mickey, Spacewalking the Dog, Do You Wanna Dance, and Breakaway, one reason is that I thought they were good songs that deserved to be more well known, especially in the case of Over My Head. There's probably another deeper, but not borderline inappropriate, reason too, and I would let you know what that reason is if I knew enough about how my mind works. In any case, I decided to stop making those song reviews for the time being, not because of anything personal against Toni Basil, but because they didn't do particularly well. And also because I realised that I should be focusing more on topics that don't cause as much stress. You know, there's another thing I don't really understand. Back in February 2024, I wrote a certain Thomas story as an effort in learning self-awareness, with the plot revolving around a celebrity's fan learning to accept the reality of that connection, and how it would likely never be anything more than a parasocial relationship. The story was named after Brett Cooper, and featured Norfolk and Western J-Class number 611 as a stand-in for the namesake, while Thomas was a stand-in for me. I had enough self-awareness back then to know that the obsession with Brett wasn't doing me any good, and yet, history has kind of repeated itself with Toni Basil. History repeating itself is what I was referring to when I mentioned the thing I don't really understand. I wish I could explain why and how things have turned out that way, but my mind is quite a complex beast, to the point where I don't understand how it works, and I just can't explain why history repeated itself. Not going to lie, I used to be pretty damn stressed over my interest in Toni Basil and her music, to the point where, dare I bring this up, I contemplated game-ending myself just to be rid of the obsession. The good news is that I'm slowly making progress in moving on. For one thing, I generally feel better after speaking to my counsellor, who told me that he's had other neurodivergent clients, not just me, and it's not uncommon for people like me to latch onto something or someone. As for why we latch onto a particular thing or person in the first place, I don't know enough about how our minds work to answer that question, but the counsellor would likely have a better understanding. As an aside, I realised something the other day, and it relates to Toni Basil's song I Don't Hear You, which was the last track on her second album. Upon listening closer to the lyrics, I think the song is actually about a parasocial relationship, and sung from the perspective of a celebrity's fan. Even if that's not what it's actually about, I Don't Hear You is still a catchy, yet rather obscure, album track that I recommend listening to, alongside the extended versions of Over My Head and Suspense, if you're curious to hear more from Toni Basil than just Mickey. So, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is this. There's nothing wrong with having a casual interest in YouTubers or other media personalities. They can, of course, be a source of inspiration, and their videos or songs can be a source of comfort, but it's not a good idea to let the people consume your thoughts. An unhealthy obsession with someone who, in all likelihood, is completely unaware of your existence will only do a number on your mental health. I speak from experience on that front. Thinking back to Brett Cooper for a moment, she went independent after leaving the comments section in December 2024, and I still watch her videos from time to time. But I realised that referencing or quoting her in my own videos wasn't entirely necessary, so I stopped doing that a fair while ago. The same goes for Sydney Watson, who's like an older and Australian version of Brett, although she's always been independent, as far as I know, and I haven't referenced her as often as Brett. In any case, Sydney was the namesake for another one of my Thomas stories, published in September 2024. In conclusion, and considering the fact that I've largely moved on from the peak of the Brett and Sydney phases, as it were, I'm somewhat confident in my ability to do the same where the Toni Basil situation is concerned. And it's like my friend Charlotte once said, the obsession will likely fade with time. After that, I hope to just be content with life as it is and not be so goddamn stressed all the time. To anyone who's stuck around to the end of the video, you win a KiwiRail diesel locomotive that's also the ambassador for a chain of convenience stores. It's DL 9711,